I'm joined by two very special guests at this moment. When I ask the big questions, can India play any role at all in the Ukraine-Russia war? Can India balance Russia and America? The Modi-Putin bonhomie, what is the message? Joining me now, Navtej Sarna. He's been a senior diplomat, served in the United States as ambassador. Daniel Fried, former diplomat, also joins me. I want to look at the tangle US and Russia with India in the middle. And Navtej Sarna, give us a sense. We've had the bonhomie that we've seen between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi, but there's also Mr. Trump somewhere in the background, the trade talks still in a limbo. How does India balance its long-term all-weather friendship with Russia and strategic relationship with the fact that the United States is also looking at Russia with looking at Russia in a very, very different light? How does India balance this, particularly at a time when the Ukraine war continues to rage?
Thank you, Rajdeep. I think, balancing big power relations is bread and butter for Indian foreign policy. And I think that we have done for many years. At this particular moment, I think it is made somewhat easier by the fact that President Trump himself is in conversations to end the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And any efforts that we make through our conversations towards an eventual peace should be fine for everybody concerned. Of course, there are differences. You know, India has been sanctioned by 25% extra tariffs for buying Russian oil, very oddly, because there are others, including China, who have bought more oil than India has. And in the past, we have been criticized for depending too much on Russian weaponry. But I think Mr. Trump fundamentally has changed the ground between where all this is happening. He has not given India the strategically positive treatment that we had worked on for the relationship for the last 25 years. And I think today India is well justified in seeking its own interests through a practical implementation of strategic autonomy. And this is frankly what is happening. If there is a message in this for President Trump, I think it has been very loudly conveyed and it will be heard.
So India's strategic autonomy is a message that it will be sent to Russia, to the United States strongly. Daniel Fried, do you believe that that's a message that the United States will get when these pictures play out across the world, the pictures of the bonhomie between the Russians and the Indians? How will Washington see it?
Well, the first problem India has is that Washington or the Trump administration is not one thing. The Trump administration, even more than most American administrations, is an uneasy coalition of groups with very different views. But I think the ambassador made a good point. Americans have to recognize India's strategic autonomy as a fact. That's just where we are. Secondly, I think that India can play a constructive role. Trump deserves credit for pushing a negotiated end to the war. But Putin so far has absolutely no interest in taking these negotiations seriously. He has stonewalled. The Ukrainians have cooperated, the Europeans have cooperated, the Russians have given nothing. And this is where India can actually put its weight. I think if the Prime Minister is as smart as I hear he is, then he may well find a way to impress upon Putin the need to work to negotiate an end to the war, because that will serve everybody's interests. And I think Putin will take.
But do you actually believe India, Mr. Fried, if I may push you before I come back to that, do you believe India has that kind of leverage to push Russia to end the war?
I think Putin needs India to a significant degree. Putin does not want to be isolated. India's message would be taken seriously in the Kremlin. Now, not India alone. I'm not trying to put the burden on India. I think the United States has to use our own leverage against Russia, and Trump has it. He has not yet used it. But I think India can play a role, and that would be appreciated. Look, the Americans have learned that we need to work with India, that we will not agree on everything, but we can agree on a great many things. Russia is involved in an imperial war, a war against civilians, a war against the Ukrainian nation, and that violates what I understand are India's long-standing principles. I'm not asking India to break with Russia.
Can
It
I?
won't do so. It won't do so, but India could play a constructive role, and I hope it does.
Let me take that to you, Navtesh Sarna. When the Prime Minister today spoke, he said that India doesn't have a neutral position. India stands for peace. We've heard the Prime Minister say this in the past also at various summits where President Putin on occasion has been there. This is not an era of war. The truth of the matter is there is no sign of the war ending. And even in that interview to India Today TV, President Putin did not sound like someone who has peace in mind. So given what we are seeing on the ground, do you really believe that India has any leverage? And could India, as a result, by getting too close at any stage to Russia or being seen to get too close to Russia, antagonize allies both in Europe and indeed in the United States?
Well, on both your questions, Rajdeep Panding, on the first one, we have to be realistic. Ukraine and global situation would have been one aspect of the conversations between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. We must remember the real purpose of this visit is to re-energize the India-Russia relationship, which is a very old, time-tested relationship. And this is the 23rd summit. He's not actually come here to resolve the Ukraine issue. That is one aspect of the visit, because everything around the globe is discussed when leaders like this meet, and India is in a particularly good position of being able to talk to Russia as we talk to Ukraine, we talk to Europe, when we talk to the United States. So I'm sure the Prime Minister, when he chose those words that India is in favor of peace, was in his way conveying a message. But the entire burden of the visit is re-energizing India-Russia relations. Whether it's nuclear energy, whether it's energy, whether it is connectivity, whether it is trade, and so on, and giving more meat to that relationship. So we must remember that. And the second,
but if I look at the sure, but Mr. Sarna, just for a moment, if I look at the numbers, the fact is we have a huge ballooning trade deficit with Russia. Now,
correct.
do you believe that therefore our relationship with Russia, which for the longest time was very defense-centric, we need Russia to also start buying Indian goods? It's all very well to have these handshakes and say that we are all-weather friends, but the truth is Russia as a friend continues to have the benefit of a huge trade imbalance with India.
Absolutely, because we have, and that has been the imbalance in the relationship, particularly in the last couple of years, when we have, by an accident of geopolitics, we have bought so much oil from Russia. But earlier on, our overall trade has been low. So now we have to make it a sustainable trade and economic relationship, which actually, puts more actual stuff on the table beyond the conversations and beyond the good feeling, and even beyond security, defense, and nuclear energy. So we have to open pathways. And I think they seem to be keen to start this conversation. He has come with a huge business delegation, and they have had conversations. We must remember that they also need this economic and trade relationship. They need people. That is why you see the labor migration agreement. They need people, that they need cooperation to work, say, in shipbuilding in the Arctic and so on. So I think if both sides realize that the relationship at the moment is imbalanced. It is too much towards security and defense and nuclear reactors. So we have to diversify it. So you're absolutely right. It has to become a sustainable relationship.
Okay. Good to get two fine voices, Navtej Sarna, Daniel Fried, for joining me on the India Today, on the news today. I appreciate you joining me and giving us a sense of the road ahead for India, Russia, particularly with the Washington factor also looming large.